Good evening, everybody, and welcome to User Experience Metrics for Applications. My name is Jan Moons, and I'm the co-founder of UXprobe, a company we started in the beginning of this year, and we built software to measure the user experience of applications. I'm also Senior User Experience Designer at Materialize Dental, where I'm in charge of designing the next generation CAD/CAM systems for implantologists. My Twitter handles are up here, and if you want to get in touch, you can use LinkedIn. Now, to set the stage a bit, we are in the age of apps. Apps are everywhere, not only on your iPhones or Androids or tablets, but also on TVs, even washing machines, and I have a printer that has apps and has an app store where you can download applications. So it's very easy for users to go to an online store, buy or just download an application. They just try it and they just can play with it. But yeah, you have to be careful. To build a successful app, it takes you one chance in a million, or maybe even more, to make a successful app. So an app that people really download, install, and keep on using. So you better make sure that you make an app with a very good user experience. Because if you're not doing this, well, people have 1 or 2 seconds to get rid of your app and delete it from their device. They will go on the App Store again and look for an app from a competitor. And that's not the only thing. They can also write a review about their bad experience. Also, not only on the app stores, but also on every social media that they have available, like Facebook, Twitter, or whatever they want to share their status with. So this might mean if you make an app with a bad experience, that's game over. I mean, it's the end of your application, but it could even be worse, like it could even be the end of your company, because people might lose the trust in you as a company or even as a brand. So what can we do about it? How can we build apps with a good user experience? Well, it all starts with a kind of user-centered design process. I will not go over all the details, so I've made a very simple diagram here. But it all starts with an idea, of course. You have an idea to build an application, but if you want to start from a user perspective, you have to do some studies. And normally, as a user-centered designer or a usability engineer, you go out to the people who you think are your potential customers or users, and you try to understand what they need in the application you want to build. So you go on house visits or whatever you do, focus groups, it doesn't matter, as long as you get the right information about what these people's wants and needs are. Once you have gathered everything, you put it on some kind of mind map, or like in this case, an affinity diagram. It doesn't matter how you represent it. And then you come to the build stage. I mean, the build stage is really something that is really iterative. It's going on and on and on, and you add stuff, you remove stuff again, until you have eventually your product. Now at the build stage, normally designers make a lot of mock-ups, like here, but it also could be just paper, wireframes, Flash, HTML, it doesn't matter. After that, they do some testing to see, like, okay, the design I have made here, can people really use it? Can they perform the tasks that they want to perform with the application? You do A/B testing, like, okay, I have one design that does this, this, and this. I have another design that does the same thing, but maybe in another way. I use different colors, etc., etc. So you you go to the users a lot just to verify the product you're making. And once you've done all of this, it's time to give your designs to your development team, and they start coding it. Now, okay, like I already said, the build stage is a really iterative process, so we will go back and forth to your users, back to your development team. You will have discussions about the implementation, etc. But once you're satisfied with the implementations, you can launch your application. You will have a version X, whatever. But then it doesn't end there, because maybe you want to build another version, and then you have to evaluate and track the success of the application you've maybe already put on the App Store. You also have to consider this in an agile and lean development process, where things don't take ages to perform, but it's only a matter of a couple of weeks where you go from one version to the other. So you don't have a lot of time in between to do a lot of designs and to talk too much to users. No, you really have to do it with some focus. So when after you launch and you want to go to the next version, again, you go, for instance, to a usability lab, and you let people perform tasks with your applications. But what then? I mean, what you've seen before is really like, okay, I'm doing research before I'm building the app, I'm doing some research while I'm building the app, and then in the end, once I have my product version X, I've put it on the App Store, what do I want to know? Well, I really want to know what people are actually doing with the application. And then this is where UXs comes in. It's a software UXprobe is building at the moment. It's still in an early stage. We call it MVP, minimal viable product. But that's why we are here. We want to test it off with the public and see what they feel about it. So what we do at UXs, we join user behavior tracking with user sentiment. Now, what is user behavior? Well, those are the things that users really do with your application. Like when you're using a Twitter app, the thing you might want to do is like send a new tweet, or add a follower, or unfollow somebody. So those are the main things that a user can do, and he will come across certain screens, he will use certain features, and he will come across errors or problems that he has to work his way through. And on the other hand, we have user sentiment. This is usually captured by using surveys. So you send out a survey to your user and you ask him to rate certain things about your application. Or you might notice you have this feedback button on your application. And when people feel up to it, they just can hit that button and tell you what they feel about your application, or the things they want to see changed in your application. So what UXs does is it takes all of these data streams together and presents it on a dashboard. So the first thing I want to show you is tracking the user behavior. So what we have to do is, when you have your product version X, you have to insert a small library, a tiny library inside that does the tracking. And once you distribute your application to your beta testers, or when you've put it online and people start using it, we are able to track it and we send the data to our backend, the service. So as you can see, the API is really small. So on application start, the only thing you have to do is create an instance of the logger, and then you just start the session. Well, most of you might already know like how Google Analytics works. This is more or less the same, but our API is more smaller maybe and not so general. So once you have the session, now for every task you want to track, and the task is like things that people want to do with the application, like sending a message, or drawing something on a picture, or calculating something. So those are tasks, activities that people want to perform with your application. So, to start a task, of course, you say log start task, and you give it a string, like create new email message. And now what we want to do here is we want to follow the different steps a user takes within this process of starting a task and ending a task. So we can log screens, features, and even errors. And errors, we don't only consider like errors thrown by the application, but also input errors like, might have already had this when you're filling out a form and you have to provide your telephone number that they expect another format than you provided. We also capture this. And when you close the app, you log out of the session. Now, just to show this on a small application, unfortunately, it is not written in Java. It was written in Flex because I did a couple of years ago a Hello World program in Flex, and I just wanted to reuse it. So, but I think it's more or less the same when writing an Android application with Java or an iOS application. So when your application initializes, like I already said, the first thing you have to do is create an instance of the logger. And then you just say, okay, start this session. So really simple. You provide your account ID, which you will get from us once you register. You give it the name of your project. In this case, it was a Twitter application called Hashingbird. And you could also provide a version number, etc. Now, of course, we want to send some tweets. Let's go to the timeline view, I suppose. Yeah. So on the timeline view, we have somewhere in the UI a new tweet button. And yeah, we have handle send new tweet. Okay, that's here. So when we click that button, we start logging the task, etc., etc. I mean, when problems happen, you use the error log statement and so forth. I mean, it's really logging every step a user performs with your application. You have to do something. It's not automatic. You have to program some lines yourself. So, once you've seen a bit the API, maybe I'll show you quickly how the application looks like so that you have an understanding what's happening here. So when I launch it, that's the splash screen. And when all goes well, the first thing you have to do with a Twitter application, if you haven't done so, is provide your credentials and then authorize. And in the background, you see that the application starts tracking. So it's a rather simple application. It's not nice looking, but that's not the point of this whole talk. So let's go back. It ends the session when you leave, of course. So now that we know how to track, okay, I've shown you a bit of code, not into too much detail, but I think you all have the idea now. What we do next is we try to capture feedback and satisfaction. I mean, it's not only useful that you know what people are doing with your application, but you also need to know what they think about it, how they feel about when they're using your application. So you need to know, like, okay, what are the things that they like or hate? How do they feel about your complete application? What did they think about the navigation? Was it easy or difficult to perform? How do they feel when they encounter problems? Is it possible for them to solve them without too much problem? What are their expectations and suggestions they have? So this might sound familiar to you. So on the application, you might have, like you see on the left-hand side, some kind of what we call likability feedback. People have the ability to say, like, oh, this is something I like. They can give a comment, add a screenshot, and send the feedback to the backend. On the right-hand side, yeah, this is an ugly example again. Something went wrong with the CSS of an example survey. So every time that the user stops using the application, they get presented with a small survey to see, okay, what they thought about the application. These examples are just an example. So you can design them whatever you want, and you can also ask the questions you want in the survey. You can define them yourself. So again, really simple. It's log feedback to send the screenshots with the smileys over, and to request the survey. You just provide the ID. To show you this, first let's have a look at the dashboard again. Yeah, I forgot to show you. This is the first thing we did was we started tracking. So if it's still working, of course. Yep. So it's the last one, and I didn't do much. So I started the session, and I opened the timeline, and I didn't do anything more than that. And that took me in total 1 minute and 38 seconds just to show you the code and launch the application. So when we go back into the code of the application, what I want to show you is the add follower. Yeah. So in order to show up this feedback panel, we have just this button and one XML line of code that you have to add to your application to show this pop-up. How does it look like? Well, I just started up again. I forgot to save my username, but it doesn't matter. So I'm still tracking now. I'm logged in. So we have this button on the top. When you click it, you can say like, okay, this is something I hate, like, or I have a suggestion. And my suggestion would be like, add more white space, for instance, because it makes the reading easier. I can attach the screenshot to it, and I send the feedback over to our backend. Now, when we have a look at the feedbacks, voila, there it is. And then it also shows like, okay, what was happening here? I just made a screenshot. I didn't do anything else with it. But yeah, the feedback gives you a list like, okay, what are the things that people have difficulties with, and can give suggestions on. Now, this doesn't really look like wow. It's just gathering kinds of data. But once you start combining it, I mean, putting all these things together, certain patterns may arise. And let's have a look at the UX metrics at the dashboard. So once you've sent over all of your tracking data, you've captured the feedback and the survey data, you now have a look at the dashboard. Wait. Okay. So what we have from a user experience perspective, we want to know like, okay, what are people actually doing with the application? Or are there actually people using our application? So from the first graph, you can easily see like, okay, for the last 3 days, we have like 173, it goes up a bit, 228, but today we have a drop of about 100 people. So maybe we've made a new version, so what's happening here? What we also see is like, okay, what are people actually doing with the application? I don't know if you guys, when you've put an application online, that you actually know what people are doing with your application. Are there people looking at the logs of their server or doing today? Anybody? Or is it just like, okay, we made the application, now it's online, our job is done? Well, I always try to figure out what people are doing so that I know what to do for my next version of the application. Now, the thing about the tracking is that we know or can pinpoint where certain problems arise. So in our Twitter application, we have some tasks that I put in the code to follow. And it's not really going well, this application. As you can see, the only thing that's pretty okay is the signing in. So people can sign into their Twitter account, but that's about it. Sending or replying to a tweet is really difficult. Only 13% of the people who went to the retweeting view were able to successfully retweet one. Well, next to that, we have the errors graph, which can tell you a bit more like, okay, what are the problems that people are having here on the left-hand side with my tasks? So it gives you an overview of all the errors that are happening here, and that might help you pinpoint the problem inside of your application. As you can see, we also have JSON parsing errors or authentication errors. We don't only capture errors about problems with the user interface. I mean, user experience is about an experience of the whole application, not only about the UI, not only about the visual part, but the functioning of the application as a whole. Another thing, I don't know if you already thought about that, but the only thing that most people do when they build a new version of the application is that they want to add features. I don't know if you guys have such a product manager that says like, okay, now we have this version, for the next version I want to add this, this, and this, and this. Well, did you ever ask him, what are the things that you think we could remove from the application? Well, most of the time, your product manager is not able to say like, I cannot pinpoint, I don't know which features I can remove. I would like to still have them all and add new ones. But with the tracking of your applications, you can definitely see like, okay, which features do I really need, can stay in the application. But you can think like, okay, if I have to remove one feature from my application, what would that be? Now, sometimes like adding followers in a Twitter app might be important, so it might be stupid to remove this one. But you have to see it in perspective, of course. Next to that, you had this likability panel where people could say like, okay, these are the features I would like to have in my application. Yeah, it helps you like thinking about what's the next step for my next version. The same for the happiness. What do people like about your application? What do they hate? And you get an overview of the surveys. So what you can do here is you can also look at it version over version. So this was version 1.0. If we go back to the 0.9, which was the previous version, you see like, okay, we improved something on the handling followers because it was for 50% blue. So you can really look version over version and track if there are improvements inside of your in the design of your application. Then one last thing is about depth view on the tasks. Like for instance, following a user. It might be that it shows on the graph that 99% of the people were able to successfully complete your application, to complete your task. But yeah, we also measure other things like average duration. And if you see there that, okay, the average duration is way higher than I expected, although people can successfully perform the task, there might be something wrong. Or they could say like, okay, I'm not really happy with the tasks you give me here. I cannot do what I want to do with it, so please improve. So here you have all the data you captured on all of the different tasks inside of your application, and you can put them more into perspective. So it's really a quick overview. 30 minutes is not a lot, of course, to show you everything and explain it in detail. But what we want to say is like, okay, there are a lot of tools that enable you to track the user behavior, like Google Analytics or KISS metrics or whatever. But what I found hard there is it's hard to combine the analytics with surveys and with this user feedback. And that's why we started building UXs, because we see like if you combine all of these different data sets, it can learn you a lot more. So like we said here, like metrics contextualize user sentiment, but sentiment humanizes the metrics. So this concludes my presentation. Are there any questions or remarks? So we are an MVP, we're happy to get some feedback or... Nobody? Yes, go ahead. Well, normally you should tell your user about it. Like, okay, you're using this application. Can we use can we track your data? So legally, you should ask your users. But you know, a lot of people just don't ask. If you go to a website, all of a sudden you see on your status bar like Google Analytics is taking off, starting. So, and you're not notified most of the times about this. But yes, you should notify your user. Yes, go ahead.
Is there a reason that you're using log messages instead of automatically retrieving the data?
Can you further explain?
The messages that you're registered,
Yeah.
then it will log something.
Yeah, because they need to be...
To see if you click on a button that this button is triggered.
Yeah, so what we do inside of the service is we make these kind of containers like the tasks I talked about. And these have to be specified. I understand, like, okay, you could trigger, or when somebody clicks a button, that you can capture this. We're thinking about that so that we don't have to program these, but we have to say, like, okay, a task starts here and it ends there. Because that's something that gives us the ability to show you how well people are doing on particular parts of your application. So some coding is needed, but like for instance, when people click buttons, we could easily trigger that ourselves or capture that ourselves. Yeah, so it's not only for Android applications. So we have an SDK for iPhone, we have a jQuery SDK, and there's also a .NET SDK at the moment. And we have a REST API, so you can talk to it with whatever language you want to use. At the moment, well, it's called UX metrics for applications because an application is different from a regular website. Websites are normally used for retrieving information and going through it, although certain aspects are tiny apps on themselves. Like for instance, the checkout cart of Amazon could be considered as a small application, so you could start tracking what's happening over there. And the other question, sorry, I forgot. What happens if your server is not reachable? Yeah, so we already had this request. So today we don't capture your feedback, your logs, but we're working on our next version to store them locally on the device. And from the moment the server is reachable or you're online again, it will send over the logging data and all the things you've captured so far. But like I said, it's a work in progress. We have our MVP at the moment, but with the feedback we get from people, we expand it and then go to the next level. Other questions? Okay, so thank you for your attention, and I hope you see that analytics and sentiment is really something you need to consider when developing applications and putting them online. Thank you.